Hello and welcome. My name's Angie Holden and I'm the blogger behind the Country Chic Cottage. Today we're going to talk about which Cricut machine is for you. This year, 2023, so far, Cricut has released two new Cricut machines, the Cricut Venture and the Cricut Joy Xtra. So I thought I would make an updated version of this video on choosing the Cricut machine that's right for you. Because frankly, with all these Cricut machines on the market, there is a Cricut machine for everyone. Whatever your needs, whatever your budget, whatever type of crafter you are, you'll find a Cricut machine that's just right for you. First, we're going to talk about the biggest decision of all, and that is which of the Cricut machines is for you, the Joy, the Explore, the Maker, or the Venture. Now, within the Joy, Explore, and Maker, there are different versions of these machines on the market, and we'll get to those at the end of this video. For now, we're going to concentrate on which Cricut machine line is for you. Joy, Explore, Maker, or Venture. The Venture is behind me because it is very large. So we are going to start with the smallest and the simplest, and that is the Joy line of machines. There are currently two machines in this line. They are the smallest, they are the simplest, but that also means they are the most restrictive. So they can cut fewer materials, and the sizes are smaller. And we'll get into a little bit of the sizing in a minute when we talk about the differences between the two Joy machines. Now with the Joy machines, you're restricted on size, you're also restricted on materials. However, if you are going to make simple projects that only require paper, HTV, vinyl, and other thin materials, there are over 50 materials that a Cricut Joy can cut. And it is a very simple and easy machine to use. So that is why I always tell beginners to look at that machine. If it fits their needs, it is definitely a great place to start. Because it's so simple, it's a great introduction to Cricut, great introduction to Cricut Design Space, and a great way to get your feet wet. However, a lot of people find that they often want to upgrade after they get something like the Joy. I also wanted to mention a couple other use cases. If you're restricted on space, or if you want to travel with your Cricut machine, the Cricut Joy line is hands down what I would recommend. They're small, they're compact, they're lightweight, they're easy to travel with. Definitely would look into the Joy line if you fall into either of those categories. And then from the Joy, we're gonna go in order. So from the Joy, we go to the Explore series. The Explore series opens up more materials, a little bit thicker materials, and opens up your sizing a little bit. So it's less restrictive than the Joy. Cuts over like 100 materials, has a deep point blade. You do add a scoring ability with the Cricut Explore, which is nice if you want to score things. And again, that sizing gets larger. Now you do get slightly thicker with the Explore machine, so you can still do those thin materials. So you can think of it this way, everything the Joy can do, the Explore series can do. And it still does those thin materials, paper, HTV, vinyl, those very thin materials. However, you add on that deep cut blade, so things like foam, craft foam, things like that. Little bit thicker materials can be cut with the Explore series. If you want to go way thicker, you would hop up to the Maker series. The Maker series is the most powerful, like desktop type of machine that they make. The Cricut Maker cuts over like 200 and something materials, a lot of materials. It has a whole suite of different blades, engraving tips, different things like that that you can add to it. It can cut very thick material. This machine can cut thin wood. It can cut leather. It cuts fabric like a dream. If you are getting a Cricut machine to cut fabric, the Maker is hands down what I recommend. It is the only machine in the series that comes with a rotary blade that cuts fabric like an absolute dream. So if your goal is to cut fabric, or if your goal is to cut as many things as possible with a cutting machine that you just want to experiment, you want to do different craft types, Maker is definitely the machine I recommend. Now it's basically the same size as an Explore series, and the dimensions it can cut are the same as well. So the Maker series and Explore series are very similar in size and those size restrictions. If you want to go large, or if you want to produce a lot of things at once, you would look into the Cricut Venture, and that's the one behind me. It cuts material thicknesses similar to an Explore series. So over 100 materials, thin materials, can take the deep point blade, it can score, but it is a very large machine. Now, while you can operate this on a table, at the edge of a table, it is, in my opinion, easier to operate if you also purchase the docking stand with it. That means an extra investment, but in my opinion, it's well worth it. This machine can cut very large designs and repeated cuts. So if you're making multiples of things to sell, the Cricut Venture might be something you want to look into investing in. This will allow you to cut those multiples very, very fast. Now, it is the fastest and most accurate Cricut machine on the market. So it beats all of these in speed as well as accuracy. The machine itself is designed very well. It is a rugged design and one of my favorite Cricut machines, although it is a very expensive Cricut machine and a large investment, so it is definitely not right for everyone. However, if you're running a Cricut business or you are thinking like, I'm gonna need 5 of these Cricut machines to cut as much as I need to cut in a day, then the Venture might be something you wanna look into. One Cricut machine that would do the work of 5 basically. So now perhaps that brief summary helped you narrow down your options. Now let's look a little closer into each of the lines. So with the Cricut Joy line, you have the original Cricut Joy, just called Cricut Joy, and then you have the Cricut Joy Xtra. The Cricut Joy Xtra is a little bit larger and it adds, of course, size, but it also adds a print and cut feature. So the original Joy you cannot do print and cut with, so the Cricut Joy Xtra is perfect for those that want to cut those thin materials, plus they want to make print and cut stickers. The Cricut Joy Xtra would be the machine for you. Now the Cricut Joy, you can see it is very, very small. It has like a 4.5 inch width on your cutting size. Whereas when you move up to the Cricut Joy Xtra, you're moving up to like an 8.5 inch width. And both of these materials can cut matless with smart materials only. All the other materials you want to use, any other brands, you would put them on a mat. And both of these have mats that you can purchase with them. And both of these come with a fine point blade, and then you can add a foil tool onto the machine if you want to add foiling. And you can also add pens to both of these machines. Then if you're like, Cricut Joy is not for me, we're going to go up to the Cricut Explore. So currently you have the Explore 3 is the latest machine, but other Explore machines are still on the market. So you might see Explore Air 2, you might even see an Explore 1 or the original Explore for sale somewhere. All of the Explore machines are currently supported by Cricut. Cricut currently sells the Explore Air 2 as well as the Explore 3. So let's talk about the Explore Air 2 and the Explore 3 because those are what Cricut currently sells. The Explore Air 2 takes mats only. So it is a 12 by 24 mat is its maximum cut size, whereas the Explore 3 here will cut without a mat on smart materials. Any other branded material you would need to put on a mat. For those smart materials, however, you can cut long rolls of material, so it makes cutting longer sizes or multiples of something easier with the Explore 3. And then that cutting that is not on a mat is also faster, so that is also a thing you might want to consider. The Explore series comes with a fine point blade. You can add a deep point blade, a foil tool, a scoring stylus, and pens as Cricut accessories onto this. Now those would be an additional investment. However, if you want to get the most out of your Cricut machine, you may find that you need those. Now it will do everything the Joy will do. So it will do all the cuts, more materials, plus yes, it will do print and cuts. We mentioned that with the Cricut Joy Xtra. The Cricut Explore series will do print and cut as well. Then if the Explore series is not what you're looking for and you move up to the Maker, there is the original Maker and the Maker 3. There is no Maker 2. So Cricut Maker or Cricut Maker 3. Again, the difference is basically that the original Maker cuts on the mat, so 12 by 24 max cut size, whereas the Cricut Maker 3 will cut off a mat with those smart materials, cutting those long rolls of material. It also cuts faster when you're not cutting on a mat. Now the Cricut Maker 3, I mentioned this before, there are many, many blades and tools that you can purchase for it. So it comes with a fine point blade always. The original Maker also comes with a rotary tool, which is nice. You have to purchase it separately for the Maker 3. Then you can use the fine point blade. So any tools you could use in the Explorer, you can use in the Maker. So fine point blade, scoring tool, foiling tool. Then for the Maker series only, you can also get an engraving tip, a deboss tip, a perf blade, a wavy blade, and a knife blade. So I mentioned that it can cut thicker materials, even some wood materials, and yes, that is where your knife blade would come in. The knife blade is one of my favorites, so I'll talk about it for a minute. It is basically like a craft knife that you would use in your crafting, but put in a crafting machine. So imagine if you had a craft knife and you are using a ruler to score wood and snap it. You can do that same thing inside of the Cricut Maker with Cricut Design Space, adding the knife blade to the Cricut Maker and using a computer to do those cuts. So while you can get more intricate cuts, I would caution you that both the rotary blade and the knife blade can't do super intricate cuts on any Maker machine. So the cuts need to be fairly round edges, fairly large, so super intricate cuts don't really work well with either of those. And then the most expensive Cricut machine back here is the Cricut Venture. I mentioned that it is similar to an Explore series and what it can cut, and also the blades it can take. So it comes with a fine point blade, and then you can get the deep point blade, the foil tool, a scoring stylus, as well as pens to fit the Cricut Venture. It will cut very, very large rolls of vinyl and HTV without a mat, so smart materials without a mat. And there are mats that you can purchase for the Cricut Venture. So 24 by 28 is the largest size on a mat for the Cricut Venture, 24 inches wide on a roll. And just to note that for smart materials in general, the rolls themselves need to be 25 inches and 13 inches wide. So a lot of people get confused on what size rolls that they would need. They do need to be that smart material size. If this is your first Cricut machine purchase, I would say that all of them would probably be a slight learning curve, but as I mentioned, the Joy would be the easiest to use, and you would probably pretty much step up from there. So the Joy would be the easiest, next would be the Explorer, Maker would be more difficult, and Venture would be more difficult to operate as well. Now if you were looking to upgrade a Cricut machine, so you found this video, you have a Cricut Explore Air 2, and you're wondering if you need to upgrade to one of the other machines, once you learn Cricut Design Space, the upgrading to another machine, the learning curve to me isn't that bad. There are, of course, more tools if you buy a Maker. There are some things that are different about the way like you load the Cricut Venture and some things you need to think about differently with the Venture. However, once you learn Cricut Design Space and learn Cricut terminology, any of the other machines I find are fairly easy to use with a slight learning curve. So I wouldn't worry so much about jumping from the Explorer to the Maker if, say, you already have an Explorer machine. So now I often get asked why I have all of the Cricut machines, and I get asked questions like, would you purchase a Cricut Venture if it was just you or something like that? Now for me, I run this YouTube channel, so I need all of the Cricut machines so I know how to use them all, and I can do videos like this where I know exactly what each machine does and can help you decide between machines. So yes, personally, I would purchase all of these Cricut machines because of the job I do for you. Now, if I was an average crafter, I would decide what materials I would like to craft with now as well as in the future. So sit down and think about that. What materials do you want to craft with now? Like what materials have you seen other people using if you're new to Cricut crafting? Which of those do you want to dive into right now? Are you really into paper crafts and you want to use your Cricut machine for those? Do you want to use HTV on shirts? Are you intrigued about putting vinyl decals on a wall? Make a list of all those things you've seen and research if those materials can be cut by a Joy, and if the size of the project you want to make is small, the Joy might work. The Joy Xtra is a really great machine, really great size. I will say that, especially for beginners, it incorporates a lot of things that beginners typically want to do, and the sizing by that 8.5 by 12 inch mat size is kind of perfect for a lot of those beginner type projects. So if I was a beginner, I would probably look into the Joy Xtra first. Does it cut everything I want to cut now and in the future? So if I wanted to jump into crafting and I had a list, small list of things that I want to craft now, but I know within 6 months that I'm going to want to make this other list, I would probably try, if my budget allowed, to get a machine that would work for both of those groups. That way in 6 months, I'm not trying to sell my Joy to purchase an Explore. That would be like my worst nightmare, frankly, is trying to sell one of these to purchase the next one. I would rather, if I had the budget, go ahead and buy the Explore once and use it for many, many years, rather than buying one and upgrading later. However, if you don't have the budget, looking at the most budget-friendly options, that does the bare minimum of what you need to do right now is probably a great option as well. Like I said, for me, for a beginner, I would probably start looking at the Cricut Joy Xtra, and that is not this one, but this machine right here. So I'd probably look at the Cricut Joy Xtra first for a beginner. I do think it's a really great beginner machine and does a lot of things that beginners want to do. From there, like if that is too restrictive for you, then I would look into the Explorer or the Maker most likely. I had said it before, but I would probably only look at the Cricut Venture if you have a large budget and just want to play with it, or if you're running a craft business. That would be my probably 2 use case scenarios. Or possibly number 3 would be if you're making the same thing over and over again, like for a charity. So maybe it's not for a craft business for profit, but you're making the same thing over and over again and want something to just like, you send it, you set it, you forget it, it cuts all the things. Cricut Venture might be for you. Or if you need to make those really large projects that one of these machines can't handle. Otherwise, I think one of these would probably suit your needs. So now it's up to you. Start making that list of crafts that you want to do now and in the future, and then ask any questions that you have below. I am more than willing to help you decide on which Cricut machine is right for you. Once you decide, I have a list of links in the description below this video on where to purchase Cricut machines. And if you use those, it's an affiliate link and it helps support this YouTube channel, so I really appreciate the help. Otherwise, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. You can ask any other Cricut questions you have in the comment section below as well. I'm always happy to help or point you to another video. If you haven't already, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. We have videos just like this one every single week, and trust me, you don't want to miss any of those. Thank you all so much for joining me, and happy cricketing. I hope you find the Cricut machine that's perfect for you. Thanks, y'all. Bye.